Welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Nosworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in Ireland and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. For tonight's Labor Day special, we're entering the world of a paranormal portal. Yes, that's right, on UPRN, segment number 43 of P&L Podcast. Now, otherwise, season 3 for the folks who were following me before I joined P&L Podcast with UPRN. Now, I've got a special guest tonight waiting backstage from Idaho, USA, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite Labor Day week cold one, a few barbecue munchies, and get ready for the spooky show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. It's a boots on the ground BOG team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Canada. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. You can follow PNL Podcast and the BOG team on their link tree at Paranormal NL Podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. I've got on with me all the way from Idaho, Brent Thomas. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jen. It's great to be back with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome back. No, as I was saying earlier, for the folks who were following me before I got on UPRN, you were on season 2, episode 129 with me. Yeah, and we got to give a shout out to Chucky Danger, Charles Stevens. He was on season 2, episode 50, and season 2, episode 119. Looks like I was busy back in season 2.
Yeah, Chucky's a great guy. He's been a real asset to me and my show.
Yes, big shout out to Chucky. So, Brent, for the folks who are new to you on United Public Radio Network, do you want to describe yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I live in the north tip of Idaho with my wife and young child. Just turned 10 years old on July 14th. So,
Okay, happy birthday to you.
yeah, but I'm a lifelong experiencer of weirdness and oddities, and I don't know if that makes me a magnet, so to speak, or not. But it certainly created enough situations in my life that I really wanted to understand what this stuff is all about, and try to at least conceptualize what is it we're experiencing, because a lot of people look at the paranormal and they just dismiss it. It's like, well, this where reality went weird. It's where things just kind of glitch in the matrix. Things stood on their heads. But I think there's something a lot more profound being demonstrated to us when we have paranormal encounters, that we are seeing examples of the impossible happening right before us. You know, things that your cereal bowl shouldn't move unless you've moved it, or it's, you know, being slid by something. And so you're seeing demonstrations of energies that we don't understand interacting with our real experiences. And so I
So,
think,
talking a little bit about yourself, and I know that you were previously on season 2, episode, I think you were on episode 129, and we were giving some shout outs to Charles Stevens when you were telling us a little bit about how you got into the paranormal and how,
Mhm.
the stuff happens.
Right. I think I think that the paranormal is demonstrating some incredible stuff. It's not like where everything is just broken or weird. It's like the breadcrumbs that just show us how dynamic and fluid reality is. And it's a saying that I use a lot on interviews, but I couldn't be more sincere that I think whatever is being shown to us is incredibly profound, and it's incredibly powerful. And it does stand to teach us about some natures of natural parts of our reality that we just don't understand yet. And so that's kind of the journey for me, is just to try to understand, what are we seeing? How is this happening in a world of, physics that say, no, these things aren't real, they don't exist, and yet they do. So
And I love that you mentioned physics because, I think a lot of it is about that. When your show is called Paranormal Portal, so
Mhm.
is that one of the reasons why you called it that? Because you think it's related to physics? Maybe it's some kind of, maybe it is a portal. Maybe we're talking to people, through some sort of different dimension.
Yeah, I think it's very possible, or at least some in some cases they might be multiversal counterparts of ours where there's for some reason these diaphragms or portals open up between, and that's not exclusively. I think that a lot of it is definitely a native part of our experience in this reality, in this layer of reality that we live in. But I think sometimes it's like time dilation sometimes, or potentially multiversal interactions. A lot of people say in multi-dimension, but I think that's kind of a misnomer because dimensions are generally levels of complexity where it's one dimension is this, two dimensions is this and this, and so it builds on complexity. I'm not sure that we're always interacting with things that are so much higher dimensional than we are or lower dimensional, but we're being presented with some other parts of reality, and where they're coming from or how they're getting here is anybody's guess. But I think, again, I
Could
think
be
we
like a
stand
combo of it, like, I
right.
see the skull and that behind you. It could be, human spirits and
Yes,
also other types of spirits that or not even spirits, but just different creatures or, you know
right.
there's so many different things you can think about what they are. But have you had any experiences yourself?
Oh, I've had tons of experiences.
Do
In
you wanna
fact,
share
I'm
one that sticks out in your mind?
sure. I mean, I've had the scary ones and I've had the beautiful ones, where I think that loved ones have reached out to me and made themselves known. I've had both, and I think that in the world of the paranormal entertainment, so to speak, we tend to focus on the dark and negative stuff, but there's lots of beautiful stuff that happens that
Yeah.
occurs paranormally. Like one instance was my dad had passed away, and I may have covered
Oh,
part of this on my last appearance, but we had a real challenging relationship. He was a very my way or the highway, and I was a very stubborn kid, and we just butted heads. But we loved each other. It was just a really odd relationship. Well, he got sick and eventually died, and I was living out here in Idaho, and he, of course, was back in my native Minnesota, where I'm from, and it just occurred to me there was a lot that I never had a chance to say. There was a lot of things that I was going to have to carry and with me for the rest of my life. It's the old saying, take advantage of the moments you have because you don't know how many you have. Well, that was my situation. I ran out of moments and I had a lot to say and didn't say. But I was just doing my best to deal with that and just carry on and move along. But then one night I went to sleep and I had the most realistic lucid dream that I'd ever had up to that point, and I was standing in my parents' house in the dining room area right next to the living room, and I'm looking in the kitchen. I'm like, "Wow, what am I doing here?" And I knew I'd gone to sleep. It was like I had total awareness of the fact that, wow, how am I here? This is really strange. And then I looked to my left, and there standing is my dad, right in his living room, and I'm like, "Dad," and we ran and embraced each other, and it was like I had that time then, and I used words, but he talked to me, but it was like it was being in my mind. It wasn't like he was actually saying words, but we had this huge interchange of me, I'm sorry I wasn't a better son, and I know you were doing the best you could and all that, and I was uh, you know, really apologetic, and he apologized to me for being that my way or the highway rigid person, and we just had this beautiful moment, and it smelled like him, it looked like him, it felt like him. It was so absolutely real. It's more real than me sitting here talking to you. It's just an incredible experience. So I woke up and I was just tears were streaming and falling down, and I knew it was a very real experience. And then um, this went on. I had several dreams with my dad, but there's one event that I think is extraordinarily powerful and beautiful. But he continued to make himself known to my mom for quite a while, and turning on his TV and doing things like that and messing with electronics in the house, things that had never happened prior to his passing in that house. It was a very quiet, normal house. But after he passed, suddenly he was all over the place. And changing channels on her TV, changing channels, turning on his TV. They had two very different TVs in different parts of the house. And my mom would call me and talk to me about this. And she's like, well, all this weird stuff's happening around. I said, well, I think Dad's still hanging around. I think he was, still being there, being present and being a part of the family, even though he'd passed. But
I
and
love
it
that you
was
were able to talk with him afterwards, and because you had a lot of unfinished business, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't get to have that experience.
right. Yeah. It was a real blessing. I could put it down. It was a very healing time, but one of the most profound instances of his presence is one that I'm going to get into now, and it's where, as I stated, he was messing with electronics. My dad in life couldn't operate a remote control to save his life. He'd always have to call my mom in because they had separate TVs, and she'd have to come in and change the channel and do the settings for him. He had a smart TV, but it was never configured to connect to the internet, and that's important in just a minute. But what happened was, I think I got a ghost phone call from my dad, and I was sitting here in my studio. It was a Friday, and my phone rang, and it looked down. It was my mom's caller ID, so I answer. I go, "Hello, hello." Nobody's there, but I can hear like this voice kind of mumbling and kind of a coughing, like and sound like that. And I was like, hello, hello. And I figured, oh, mom pocket dialed me. She must be talking to somebody like my older brother that lived across the street or whatever. So I was like, mom, mom, mom. Couldn't get her attention, tried whistling, anything that maybe she could hear. She didn't hear. And I'm like, well, I'll just call her back. I hung up, called her back. The phone rang and rang and rang and went to voicemail. I'm like, well,
Hmm.
whatever. She must be busy. So I hung up the phone and I'm sitting here working on my shows and stuff on my computer, right where I am right now. And about 10 minutes later, my phone rings and it was my mom. I'm like, oh, hello. And she goes, yeah, what'd you need? I'm like, no, no, you don't understand. You must have pocket dialed me. I had a missed call from you. And I said, by the way, is my brother over there? She goes, no. And I said, when was this? I was like 10 minutes ago. And she goes, that's not possible. I'm like, what? She goes, no, I'm home alone. The house is locked. And I was down in the shower for the last 20 minutes. And I'm like,
Oh, that's weird.
oh, wow. Right away, I was like, my dad died of COPD. So the coughing, the clearing the throat
Oh, okay, so it
was
really
very
sounded
interesting.
like yeah, yeah.
Right. But it gets better. So I went on my show that night, a live show on Friday night, and I'm like, "Hey guys,
Right.
you'll never guess what's been going on around," because I would keep them updated when weird stuff would happen
Yeah.
back home. And I said, I think I got a phone call from my dad from my mom's cell phone. And I went in and shared that story and stuff and talked about it. And then I talked about how I think he's sticking around because he was trying to be present for the family during this transition and stuff. Well, um, I got done with the show, shut everything down, went to bed. I woke up Saturday morning, came back here in the studio, and was kind of groggy, having some coffee, working on it. And suddenly my phone rings, and it's my mom. She goes, you're never gonna believe this." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Well, your dad's TV turned on by itself this morning." I'm like, "Oh wow, oh, really?" And
Okay,
she
that's
goes, "Yeah.
interesting.
Not only did it turn itself on, but it was on the internet." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's weird."
Hmm.
She goes, "Yeah, not only was it on the internet, it was on YouTube." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's incredible." She goes, "Yeah, but it was on your channel on YouTube."
That
And
was
I'm
gonna
like,
be my next question.
then she said, "It's playing the episode from last night where you're talking about all the stuff your dad has been doing in our house." So his TV turned on the internet, on YouTube, on my channel, on the exact episode, and playing the explanation of me talking about the ghost phone call and my dad turning stuff on. Now, that is so many layers of
That is so
impossibility.
specific, right?
Right. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wow. So instantly I got chills. I was like, wow.
Yeah, we've had some really weird stuff like that happen in our house. Like it'll go,
Mm.
the computer is completely off. We're in another part of the house, and all of a sudden, like something's we'll be doing something or talking about something, and it's specifically that like it'll play a podcast related to that on blast, and we're like, Stop
Oh,
it. Stop doing that, right? Go sage the area and everything. I think it gets bored when we're not
yeah.
podcasting all the time. Does yours do stuff like that at your house?
I'll tell you what, I think, and I've had this discussion with many creators, many people that have shows in this topic. And I'm convinced they all seem to be convinced, and you're echoing that now, that by virtue of doing shows where we're discussing this, it seems to find us
Mhm.
and it seems to make itself known to us, whatever these phenomena are. And it could be many different phenomena, but I mean, I think there is something about talking about it, expressing energy about this topic that creates a resonance with these.
Yeah, like when we're using spirit box and stuff, a lot of times it'll tell us, "Get back to the stories, more to the stories." It wants to hear stories about, what the old times and it just wants to chitter chat, right?
Yes.
About different things, and especially about the olden days stories. It loves stuff like that. And it'll even, tell us, okay, if we're over by a military monument or something, we'll say, "Oh, is there anybody here from the military?" And then they'll all start doing roll call. I mean, it's that aspect of it is I find really interesting. You never know who you're gonna get.
And that's a great point because I do paranormal investigating, ghost investigating as well, whenever I can. And my co-researcher Charles and I, what we've found is we'll go into a location and do, like, we'll start out with the canned question. Is anybody here that wants to talk to us? Do you know what year it is? The canned questions that
Right.
everybody and their brother asks when they're doing this,
Yeah.
and just get really very basic or no kind of interaction at all. But what we found is that if we turn on the equipment and he and I just start talking about stuff like this,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
suddenly the equipment will start triggering, like someone's there going, "Oh yeah, and this, oh yeah, I agree." It's like they need the conversation to be at least interesting, not just the
Yeah, they want
we
somebody to hang out with them, not ask
right,
them all these questions like,
right.
"How old are you? When did you die?" And it's like, "Oh,
Do you know
boring,"
you're
because
dead?
everybody's asked them that so many different times, right?
Yes, yes.
We've had, a lot of stuff like that happen where we're just being completely silly, and the
Mhm.
ghosts will chime in and comment on what we're doing specifically.
That's beautiful, because I think it's so incredibly profound to have an opportunity to make a connection with these energies, these presences, whatever they are. And I'm not saying they're always formerly living people. Maybe they were never people, but they seem to be intelligent. They seem to enjoy interaction when it's genuine. And not, I always cringe when, people go into a haunted space and they address things only for these historical figures. Well, like, is Helen Keller here? Well, maybe Helen's not there, but maybe there's 15 other things that are going, oh, he's
That's
not talking
right.
to us, you know?
Right, yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you got to go into this stuff with an open mind, not knowing who's there, but just expressing
And
an
then
opportunity.
not only those people, but further back in history, we're
Yes.
talking like, of the land and people who were
Right.
there, indigenous, shall we say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the owners of the land. But
Yep.
when we talk about stuff like that, have you had very many cryptid encounters, like with
No. That's I only think I've ever had one of those. And I'm very fascinated and interested in the topic. I will tell you that I don't spend a lot of time in the woods, even though I live in the Pacific in the Northwest and it's all forests and beautiful around here. But, I'm I don't know. I think it's a younger man's game going up in the mountains and hiking and doing all this stuff. I mean, I love going out there leisurely, but it's hard on me personally. So I find that I'm probably not in the proper place to have encounters, honestly, but I'm fascinated by it. My one encounter happened when I was 14 back in Minnesota. And it
okay.
was, I never saw what it was. I never saw what was there because I was so terrified by the fact that whatever it was right behind me and my friend. And it was growling so deeply and so powerfully that it was resonating my body. It
Oh my
was,
gosh.
and it was the biggest thing we had in this region was white-tailed deer. There is nothing that should have been able to growl like that. And I was terrified. It was just horrifying. But I was convinced whatever made that sound was about to kill me because I didn't really know about Bigfoot other than it was something in the Pacific Northwest, because that's what Leonard Nimoy on In Search of told me. It wasn't in Minnesota. This wasn't it wasn't something that I even had a concept of. It was just something angry as hell, and it was growling in such a ferocious manner and so powerfully that whatever it was, I knew it was huge, and I felt so afraid. Like this was the last moments of my life. This may very well be the last thing I'm going to hear. The last thing I wanted to do was provoke it. Now, and what you'll hear a lot of times is people talking about infrasound, and I couldn't move. I was physically paralyzed. Well, no, I could have moved. I just didn't dare, because whatever is making that sound was absolutely terrifying to me, and it still
Yeah,
remains
they
to
say that
this day.
Bigfoot uses infrasound.
Yeah, they do,
Mhm.
and it could very well, but I just know that I was full of terror, not inability to move, just not wanting to make whatever's going to kill me decide to attack right then. Like I was hanging on to what time I had left. I was just being a statue. That was all I could do. But it growled, and it growled and growled. And finally, I said to my friend, after nothing else happened, I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And he's like, "I don't know, but we got to get out of here." And we did the only thing we could do, which was run. And we ran down this hillside on the, in the forest of southeastern Minnesota as fast as we could. And whatever it was didn't follow. But
Thank
it
goodness,
wasn't,
right?
I'm sorry.
Thank goodness it didn't follow.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I didn't know what it was for years and years and years until I started learning about Bigfoot. Then I went into those same woods, which was right behind the house I grew up in back in Minnesota, and I started looking around, and I started seeing things that I'd seen hundreds of times before growing up in those woods, like tree breaks and weird, structures of broken branches, things that I couldn't explain, but I didn't know that that was unusual because I'm young. And then now I learned that these are signs people attribute to Bigfoot. So I think I was in close proximity to a Bigfoot.
You never know, it's hard to
Uh,
say. Are there any other cryptid creature type things or any other, like, shall we say, mysteries about your areas? Any
Um,
folklore?
that's the weird thing is I'd never heard all the years growing up around there, and that was where I lived the majority of my life, about any Bigfoot sightings. Now, since then, since I've started doing the show, suddenly I'm starting to hear from people even in that old area. Oh, I
No?
saw a Bigfoot out there. I'm like, what? Why didn't you guys spread this around? I mean, let people know. But nobody said anything. So yeah, there is. I don't know that there's any dogman stories, but of course, Wisconsin, the Beast of Bray Road is the next state over. So I guess dogman's a possibility too. But I
Yeah.
haven't heard of any dogman encounters. I've just heard of Bigfoot in the region that I grew up in.
Okay. Well, we should give a shout out to Tommy Cullum. I know
Oh,
that you were on his show before, and he's a big fan of yours. You were on his show, episode 20, season 6 with Tommy.
yeah, Tommy's great. I love that guy. And I didn't know he was a fan until I started reaching out to him and we connected, and yeah, we just become fast friends. He's just a wonderful guy. Does a great job.
Yeah, and you've been on a lot of other different podcasts with lots of other folks. I guess we should also give a shout out to Third Eye Live with Brian. Hey,
Yes, absolutely,
you
Bryan
were there?
Bowden. Yeah, I was on.
Shout out to you, Brian. Third Eye Live. Watch it if you haven't, and also watch Tommy Combs. Let's get freaky.
Yeah, yeah. I have had a great experience. A lot of those connections I was able to make through your group, which was really nice. And so that
Oh,
was
thanks.
wonderful. You've done a great job creating a network of sorts for people to connect and to do that. So good job.
Yeah, I call it the Paranormal NL Podcast Alumni Network. So if you're on season 1, 2, or 3, I like to hook y'all up with networking all over the world. And it's fun because you get to meet all kinds of different people who you never thought you would, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, I had no idea Tommy was even out there, and now that I've met him and appeared on his show, and he appeared on my show, he's just become a wonderful guy, a wonderful connection and friend across the pond.
So what kind of guests have you got coming up soon on your show?
I don't even know. Like
You're like me, just roll, right?
whoever I find, I let people that have experiences go to my website at paranormalportal.net, and I have a button there, and it's called Interview Me. So they click this button and it launches my calendar app. Because I love talking to celebrities, to authors, to researchers, and other show creators and such, but I love talking to the average people. I think that there's so many incredible stories out there. And so I let them look at my calendar and pick a date and time from the times that I have set up, and they can do that. And it's really wonderful because, it gives people the opportunity to find something that they're comfortable with. And then, of course, I connect with them and get to know them. And it's just been a wonderful opportunity. And it's such an honor when people connect and they want to share their story. That to me is a kind of a sacred thing, because a lot of times people, when they're dealing with this stuff, are confused. They're unsure. They feel isolated. They feel alone. And so it becomes this real cathartic process. And it's been wonderful to, meet all of these amazing people. So while I love talking to, of course, the more well-known names, some of the greatest shows I've ever done have been with just people off the street that have picked that link and said, "Hey, I got a story to share."
Yeah, I've got your thing pulled up here, paranormalportal.net. You just
Yeah.
go there and then you can click on all the different links here. And I won't do that right now because StreamYard will only allow you to have one page up at a time, and I'll be there all night trying to find stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my show. That's my website, and it talks about my YouTube page as well. Where I do two very different shows. They're both called Paranormal Portal, which maybe is not the best plan going forward, but it's the one that I developed. But the YouTube live stream shows are very much a variety show where I talk about news. I talk about we review video evidence and go over it, or videos that are online and that people are saying are paranormal. And I mean, we can't make any solid judgment calls, but just based on what we see, if there's obvious hoaxery, why, I just think it's important to remember critical thinking in all of this because, there's a lot of confirmation bias out there and there's a lot of garbage out there. And so I started that segment. It's called "What the Hell Is That?" on my live shows, just because I thought, if I'm no expert and there is no experts, but at least we can take a critical look at this stuff and see why it might be real or why it might not,
Yeah.
and just give people some rudimentary tools, things to look for that are real common in hoaxes and stuff like that. Plus, showcase some incredible images and footage that very well might be real. And then I do a cryptid corner where we talk about cryptids. We do a Discord question of the week, which is actually run by Chucky on my Discord server. He comes up with a question to ask our Discord community dealing with the paranormal, any and all of the paranormal, and it allows people to say what they think. And that's been a real fun segment as well.
Yeah,
But the
shout out again to Chucky Danger. You can find him on Instagram, Chucky_Danger. That's how you can find him.
Yes, well, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. But
And he
he's
also runs the International Paranormal Linktree Alliance.
Yes, I've been hosting that on the show descriptions as well, and he's
Yeah.
he's done a great job doing some incredible networking himself. But my podcasts, on the other hand, are very interview based, where it'll be someone with some stories, or it'll be a media personality of some kind, or researchers or authors or whatever, and it's kind of all of the above. But it's a episodic on the podcast, whereas the live streams are much more variety based.
Yeah, I like that you have so many different things that you can look at. So you've mentioned before that you did some investigations. Any other places that you've been to that stick out in your mind that you want to talk about?
Sure, I've investigated Saint Ignatius, which is a pretty famous defunct hospital in Washington State, and it's a pretty amazing place. It was very quiet. The 2 nights that I was there, it was. I think that this is something that can be kind of problematic in investigations, especially when you go to the really popular places. Is that I think they get kind of investigated out. In other words,
Yeah.
I don't think the energy goes anywhere, but it just gets tired of the same old
Like we
stuff.
were talking about earlier, they want to hear some fresh stories, right? They
Yeah, and
they don't want to
and
answer the same questions over and over. They're like, "Hey, We want to talk to
Yeah.
some new people.
Yeah, I don't want to answer that again. It's like doing the same questionnaire every night for, large portions of the year. Of
Oh my
course it
gosh.
gets played out,
Can
you
you
know?
imagine
Yeah.
being
No,
in the house and the same people or different people coming in asking the same questions? I
yeah, it'd
want
be
to
like
hear.
a bad mall experience where all those clipboard people are hovering, you know?
What other things happen with you besides like with your dad? Have you had any other stuff go on in your house?
Yeah, actually this house has been oddly well, I mean, this is where I do the paranormal portal. So, as
Right.
getting back to
Yeah.
what we're talking about, by virtue of doing this, I think it finds us. But I've had a lot of activity here, a lot of different activity. Some of it a little creepy, some of it's just more mischievous. There's I mean, nothing over the top too much. I saw an orb drift by my feet, like
Okay.
2 feet off the floor as it went right by me. A little ball of light about the
Yeah.
size of a 50-cent piece, just coming around the cupboard, went around my legs, and then just disappeared.
We've
And
had a lot of orbs downstairs when we were doing some investigations.
did
And
you?
yeah, and it was a lot. And we actually set up the trail cam just for, shits and giggles, shall we say.
Sure.
And OMG, there must have been like over 50 just going mad. And we were like,
Oh,
yeah, we're not turning that on no more.
yeah, there is something about ignorance is bliss. It's like
Yeah.
if you really know all of it that's going on around you, it might get a little heavy. So
Yeah,
maybe
some
it's
people might find it a little bit overwhelming just to know, right? And some
sure.
people said, "Oh, it's probably dust." No, it wasn't dust because it, like, moved and followed you and did, like, 90-degree angles and stuff, like, really weird, intelligent orbs. So,
Sorry.
yeah, we've done
I
some
just
cleansing.
I'll bet. Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that that's a good practice anyway.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
with sage, a lot of people misrepresent that a little bit because everybody thinks, oh, you got an evil spirits run around with sage, or if you're worried about evil spirits, well,
It
sage
could
is
be benevolent, right? Like your family, like your dad,
sure.
right? You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, we've all got that mischievous uncles and stuff that
Yeah.
have passed on, and that's certainly a possibility. But sage is
Mhm.
really not meant to purge dark things. That's more like frankincense and cedar
Mhm.
and things like that are meant
Right.
to really cleanse. But sage is
Mhm.
good for baselining energy. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that we energetically imprint on our surroundings all the time. Like
Mhm.
if you're in a house where there's lots of arguing and lots of pressure and stress like that, you can feel it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally tangible. So I think sage is a good practice to just bring that down to a baseline every once in a while, because I do think that hauntings can be created too, and certainly by virtue of those kind of energetic impressions and
Yeah,
maybe
I
some
talked a lot about, egregores with,
egregores. Yeah,
Patty Negri and, Sam Beltrusis, and I believe that too. Like, if you
yes,
keep acknowledging it, keep talking about it. There was a certain spirit who we had in our house who, we just had a certain name made up for it, and every time we passed by, we'd say something. But lately, we've just been ignoring it, and now you break out the SLS, we don't you don't see it, right?
oh yeah,
Because we
yeah,
haven't been acknowledging it.
right. Yeah, and I think that that's a very real phenomena. So I think there's certainly something that's it's good to keep in mind that the more you direct your attention and focus on something, the more it can manifest. I think you
That's
know.
true
So,
too. I was talking to a lady about haunted dolls, lately,
mm,
and, like, before, I was talking to her, I never even thought about them being scary. Because as a girl, you have dolls when you're a kid, right? Even
yeah,
the Raggedy Ann doll, like, I had one of those when I was a kid, so the
sure,
Annabelle doll, that don't really scare me, right? Like, when I see something like that. But then, when I was talking to, like, Patty, she has a new book now out on dolls too, and, well, they go in there because they wanna be talked to and held and loved, and if you're paying attention to it, then a spirit can go in it.
right.
But what do you
Yeah.
think about that other gentleman who passed away recently?
That's a tough call. I mean,
It is,
obviously,
yeah.
by virtue of hauling the doll around, that's the first conclusion people jump to is that Annabelle did it, took another person. But
Yeah.
it's
Medically, I wanna know, like, I'm the scolder in this situation, like, I wanna
yeah,
know more about his medical history and stuff like that before you just jump to conclusions, you know?
Yeah, and I saw that Amy Bruni posted that too. She's like, "Yeah, don't everybody don't link me in this. Yes, he was a wonderful guy, and it's sad that he passed away, but I don't think it has to do with the doll." And do I think it's possible? I think it's possible, but it's also possible that he just had a heart condition,
Hmm.
and maybe he didn't know about it, and you certainly can't blame that on the supernatural.
Right. Yeah.
People unfortunately die all the time, and it's not because of evil spirits. It is coincidental that he happened to be doing that, and he talked about having a car accident another time, and he and his wife were talking about how every time he moves that doll around, because he's been involved back when Mrs. Warren was alive, he was involved with all of this. So it's not like he just came out of the woodwork to do this. He's been around this stuff for a long time.
I
But
actually had a few girls on from the Warren Legacy Foundation in season two.
uh-huh.
Folks, if you want to check them out. But yeah, the Warren Legacy, they do a lot of good work.
Yeah, they do. I talked to the grandson of Mrs. Warren himself, and a nice guy. He's
Mhm.
down in Central America, but we had a really questionable connection, but just from internet wise, but wonderful
Okay.
guy. We had a great
Yeah.
discussion.
That's always good, to have different connections of people all over the world. Do you have
Yes.
certain listeners from certain countries who listen into your stuff, or do you ever go look and see, hey, they're from here or there?
I get emails from people like over in Europe a lot and Australia. My biggest markets are the United States, England, and Australia. And Australia and England kind of vie for second position all the time. It's back and forth, but a lot of wonderful people. But I'll get messages from like Finland and Germany and all kinds of countries from the Middle East. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fun to see which countries are tuning in, right?
yeah, like I will well, I haven't looked at the charts in a long time, but on the Apple iTunes charts, I was charting in Pakistan in the top 10.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, wow, I didn't know that they knew the language. That's really cool.
I
I think
think
it's
they have
amazing.
translators now, though, for that stuff, right?
Maybe they do.
With
I
the
don't know if
AI,
any is
yeah.
being applied to my show or not, but yeah, that's phenomenal.
And you've been
I
doing
think
this
it's
for a
wonderful.
long time. How many years now, Brent?
Sorry, did you ask me a question? I had another phone.
So you've been doing this for a long time. How many years have you been doing this now?
Well, the Paranormal Portal started in 2016, April, as a matter of fact, on Truth Frequency Radio, which is a internet radio station. So that's where I started, was in internet radio, doing streams there. And then in 2017, I started my YouTube. And then while I was doing the YouTube, I met Wes Germer of Sasquatch Chronicles, and he messaged me and said, "Why isn't this a podcast?" So in 2019, I started the podcast. So
Okay.
that brings us to today, where it's been all of these things. It's still a YouTube live stream and still a podcast, but yeah, this is year number 8, I guess.
Well, congrats. You've got a lot
Thanks.
of different podcasts for people to listen to. Are there any favorite ones of yours or any favorite topics?
I think this is a question I get a lot, and here's the thing: I don't ever mean to, promote one over another, because again, I think all of this stuff is incredible. From we and I don't really require people to have Hollywood level stories. Like, just tell me what you've experienced. I saw
Yeah.
shadows running around. It's like, wow, that's amazing. But there's one show that really sticks out to me, and this is one that I was really really looking for, and I didn't know if I'd ever find it, and that was people claiming to have encounters with vampires, like real vampires. And I
Okay.
researched and researched and researched it. And
Mhm.
all I found was the goth counterculture, where people glue fangs on. They might actually drink blood. They dress in black and they act like vampires. Or very ancient historical references of villages in like Romania and
Yeah.
the old world and their encounters. But I was like, where are the people that are experiencing them now? Because I knew they were out there. I think I
Well,
saw
if you're looking
monsters.
for stuff like that, Doctor Judd Burton is really good from Burton Beyond about
Oh, I'd love to
vampires.
talk to him.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also gotta give a shout out to Keith Evans' author because he has an author of a vampire book also. But Doctor Judd Burton
Mhm.
gets into the nitty-gritty of the vampires in relation to the Bible.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it wasn't until I suddenly got an email out of the blue, and the guy said, "I'm not going to try to explain what I think happened to me. I'll just tell you what happened and you tell me what you think. And
Okay.
he went into his story, and I was like, there it is. I said, this is bizarre and it's going to sound really funny, but I think you encountered a vampire. And he wrote back, he's like, exactly. I think I actually had an encounter with a vampire. And he had
Wow. Okay.
two encounters, one when he was 4 and then
Yeah.
one as an adult.
Yeah.
And he's kind of convinced that he's been tagged somehow, like they can find him. But and that may be. I don't know the nature of this, but just
Hmm.
an incredible story. And I think it was season 3, episode 46, I think, of my show, but it was having to do with vampires. And I'll tell you one of the stories that he said, and it was shocking. And
Okay.
it was when he was little. He was a
Yeah.
4-year-old kid, and he and his mom, and I think dad, his dad wasn't there at the time, but he and his mom, they lived in like a single wide trailer, and next to their house was like 80 yards of kind of field and grass, and then woods past that, and then next to that was like a playground over to like the left as you're looking out the window. So straight ahead is a wood line after 80 yards, and to the left was this fence line and then a playground area. And
Okay.
he was sitting there, and he said he used to love to sit on the counter by the kitchen sink and just kind of look out the window and play with his mom as she went back and forth. He's
Yeah.
4 years old. He said he's sitting there and he saw something he'd never seen before in all of the times that he was sitting up on that counter looking out the window. He
Hmm.
said in the wood line, he saw a figure emerge from the woods. And he's
Oh.
looking and he's looking. He's like, oh my gosh. He says, Mom, I think there's somebody outside yelling to her in a different part of the house. And then he said he looked back, and in the time from looking, yelling to his mom and looking back, suddenly that thing was right outside the window. And,
Ew.
and he said, this is the way he explained it. He said it looked like an overweight black adult male, elderly, almost elderly male. He
Right.
said it was kind of bloated, but
Yeah.
its skin was purple. Its
Purple.
lips were blue, and it
Hmm.
was like a grayish purple, like it was just like it was a corpse, kind of, I guess. But he said its
Oh.
lips were blue, its eyes were open and looking at him, but they glowed slightly red. And he said it was just trembling as it was looking at him, like it was starving, looking at him through this window. And he said
Like
the
a
weird
zombie or something, right?
right, but he said the weird thing was, he said as a 4-year-old, this should have terrified me, but he said
Right.
I felt oddly comfortable. And then he said, I realized as I was sitting there looking at this, wide eyed, but feeling okay, he said, I didn't do this, but I saw that my arm was reaching for the window to open it.
Oh
And then
no.
he said he grabbed a hold of himself, said, Mom, come here quick. And as was coming, he said he literally looked, Mom, come here quick. He broke the look, yelled into the house, looked back. And by the time he looked back, it was already had run over to the fence line and was jumping over it. He said it moved so fast, it looked like it had light streamers, like
Wow.
light. It was moving so quickly that he
Okay.
saw. And this is a
Hmm.
4-year-old kid, and the guy was like, you could
Yeah,
hear him.
because 4-year-olds, I mean, sometimes they make up stories, but the majority of the time, they're telling you the truth, right? The
Right,
cold, hard truth, especially if they don't like their supper. So
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it just shocked me. And then he had another encounter as an adult leaving a concert where he saw one on the ground, like out on he left early and was leaving because he was getting late. He had to work or something. I don't know. But he's
right?
leaving and he went outside and he's in this area with like these gazebos that would
Yeah.
be like stores in this courtyard area. He said he
Okay.
looked over and saw this person, looked away and looked back, and it was now standing on top of the gazebo. And then it started following him.
Ew, that's creepy.
Right. So very, very strange, very amazing, very compelling encounter. But it's like I was looking for it, and the story found me.
Wow. That is interesting. Yeah, not a lot of people talk about, vampire stuff, but,
Right.
um, but it is kinda make you scratch your head, right? And what else is out there that we don't know about?
That's the part that shocks me about all this. Before I got into this stuff, I thought, I know this stuff. I know it. I've been reading about it, watching everything I could, finding all the information I could.
Yeah.
That's funny. And just having like I felt like I was really grounded and in touch with this. No problem at all. I can do this. And then you start going down the rabbit holes and you realize, oh my God, this is so much bigger. It's
Mm.
not just these isolated windows. Like, well, here's where the ghosts are. Here's where the other Bigfoot and stuff is. It's like it's this whole world that opens up in front of you. And you
Like,
realize
some
we have a
people
lot
talk
to do.
about the Mandela effect and time
Oh, right.
lapses and stuff like that. Have you had many people talk about that?
Mandela effects, I think everybody has a story that something that they know used to be different is different now.
Right,
I
yeah.
think that's fascinating, and I don't know for sure what is going on there, but I don't believe like a lot of people that debunk it say no, those are just memory glitches. Well, if a person has a memory glitch, that's fine. But if big segments of the population have the same memory glitch,
Yeah,
that
like, what's on the go there? Like, what is that?
right.
I know there's had an author on, Rob, Skelsky. He has a book on the Mandela effect, and that one was pretty good. It's interesting because it makes you wonder, like, what the heck is going on, especially with all the different things, like, people are talking about, waking up and having all these, like, different things happening with different abilities and
Yeah.
being able to do, like, the CE5 events and stuff like that. Have you gone through any of that stuff or experienced any ET type things or CE5 things?
I've not done any of the CE5 stuff. I think it's fascinating. I just haven't looked into that much personally, but I've certainly talked to people who've done it, and they swear by it that they've made contact, and I think that's incredible and amazing. But I've seen UFOs. I have seen one. My very first one was just incredible, and that was
Tell me
what made
about
it
that.
real. Well, I was working doing marketing for a company, a preparedness company, and I worked remotely out of Minnesota, but the company was in Indiana and then relocated to the north tip of Idaho where I am now. This is
Right.
why I eventually moved out here.
Okay.
But I was working in the marketing department, and there was going to be some contract negotiations going on about 12 years ago, roughly. The dates I'm a little foggy on now as I get older. But I was the owner of the company said, you know what, we got these negotiations going on for advertisement and stuff with these media conglomerates. So why don't you come up here to the headquarters and then we'll meet with these people and work out contracts for advertising and stuff, and then you can just stay up here rather than doing it remotely would be a mess. So I was like, sure. So I jumped on a plane and came up here, and then I got up here, and while I was up here, the owner of the company said, look, I've got this mountain house. They just bought this mountain house, and he did all this work completely off grid up in the remote mountains of the area up here. He's like, rather than put you in a hotel in town, he said, do you want to just stay up at the mountain house? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. Staying up in this beautiful off grid house up in the nestled up in the mountains. I was like, yeah, I could do that. So he brought me up there and he kind of showed me around and then showed me what to do because it's off the grid. There's lots of stuff you have to turn on, turn off, whatever. And so he got me all situated up there. And then he said, I've got these night vision binoculars. So if you're, want to see some
Ooh.
cool stuff, look around at night, And I was like, yes, I really wanted to do that. And not because I was looking for UFOs, but because I'd always heard that in our galaxy, we have mostly red stars, or there's a ton of red stars, and you can't really see them
Mhm.
with your naked eye. But if you can look at the night sky with night vision, you're going to see millions of more stars, and it's really incredible. So we got through the day's meetings and stuff. I traveled alone back up into the mountains where I was all by myself, and basically it's just up a logging road. It's not even really a proper road. And so I got up there and got all situated, got everything on, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to grab those night vision binoculars and go outside. So I grab them and I go out in the on the parking area next to the cars and stuff, and I'm alone up there, nothing for miles around. And I go and look at the stars, and no kidding, it is amazing. As a side note, I would recommend to all your listeners, if you get a chance to look at the night sky with night vision, do it. You won't even recognize constellations. There's millions of more stars. It's incredible. So I'm looking around like a kid. I'm playing with night vision for the first time in my life, and I'm like, "Wow, this is great!" I'm looking at the stars, looking around, and just in amaze. And then I'm like, "Wow, I'm playing with night vision. Let me look at the house is situated on one slope of a mountain, and there's an opposing slope." And so I looked over at that opposing slope, looking at all the trees that were just kind of dark. I mean, your eyes adjust and you can kind of see, but I could see everything with these night vision binoculars. So I'm looking around, and then I look down the driveway, which is just a wall of blackness. And with these night vision, I can see all the way down it. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. This is fun. And then I'm like, well, I'm gonna look at the stars again. So I pan up, And I get above the trees that are lining the driveway, these huge conifer trees, and about 30 feet above the conifer trees, no kidding, is a flying saucer just sitting there. And
Ooh.
I mean, it's about 100, 150 yards away. These are only 4 power night vision
Yeah.
binoculars, so they're not really huge magnification, but it's sitting there and it's not making noise. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, as I'm looking at it, it's not the typical flying saucer, where you have the front, the top and the bottom plates kind of form a point around the perimeter. There was
Right.
a gap. There was a gap between these two plates, and in that gap were these panels, these rectangular panels, and these were flashing light in like a chasing marquee pattern, like you'd see in an old movie theaters. You know how the lights kind of chase
Yeah.
around it, on off, on off. That's what this was doing around it, and it's giving off light and it's flashing. I'm like, and I'm blown away because I'd always looked for years and years and years throughout my life, never seen anything, but there it was. It was sitting there right above that tree, just hovering. And I'm like, oh my God. So my mind is blowing. And I'm like, this is amazing. I got to see it with my own eyes. So I lower the binoculars looking at the same place. I see the stars. I see the silhouette of the trees, but there's nothing there.
Can't
Like,
see it. A lot of people say that when they look up there, they can see it on the binoculars, so when you take them off, you can't see it with your naked eye.
right. And I
So it makes
realized,
you wonder how many of these things are going around that we can't see.
right. That's my point. It was that, when I raised it, there it was there. I thought maybe it took off. Then I listed them again. It's still there. Lower it, it's not there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like that, up and down, up and down. And then it just blew my mind that they can hide. They could
That's
be
like,
right in front of you.
bioluminescence, what Chucky does, right? He loves looking at stuff under the bioluminescence. Well, just think if we had, like, insect eyeballs or something so we could see all
Right.
this stuff, all the extra things that we could see,
Right.
right?
Yep. Yep. But they know enough about us that they can hide from our native light spectrum that we can perceive.
That's
And
right.
and they, I mean, they could be sitting in your yard. They could be hovering right over your house now. You wouldn't know.
Yep.
They
Yeah,
can just
we
not
wouldn't even know.
exist. Right. Because it was silent. And so I'm looking at this up and down, up, down, blown away. And then I realize I'm down here looking at them, and I'm like the only thing going on in this whole valley. Chances are they're hovering up there looking at me.
Right,
I was
and a
like,
lot of people
whoa.
say they're hovering, but you can't hear nothing, but just think about it, like, when you blow a dog whistle, you can't hear that, right? Maybe
Right.
they're just at a different frequency, like on Skinwalker Ranch, there are all these weird frequencies that they're using. Maybe it's a frequency that we can't hear, just
Yeah,
kinda like infrasound, you can only feel it sometimes, right?
sure.
It's just a frequency we don't know is there.
Well, there's sightings of UFOs that have been reported where, like, there was one I think in New Jersey, a triangular craft going on its side down basically a street, hovering over the street, and as it passed, suddenly all the sound was gone until
Mm,
it passed by, and then the sound came back. So
okay,
something about that energy seems to block the certain sound waves, in this case. But it was visible; they could see it with their naked eye in this case, but
right?
it was absolutely silent.
Amazing, I love
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Do your, state in Idaho have a lot of, when we had all that UFO stuff on the go with drones and that, does your state have a lot of reporting with that kinda stuff?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that was mostly East Coast and into the central part of US, people were
Mhm.
reporting stuff. But I think, I had a real problem with that whole drone thing because
Mhm.
the problem is that suddenly everything in the sky is a drone.
I
And I
know, and
don't think that
it
that's
was
right.
around the time of New Year's when they had all the drone shows too, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and it obfuscates the truth of this stuff because suddenly it's drones. It's not
mhm,
UFOs, it's not UAPs, it's drones. Well,
yeah,
no, it's not. I don't think we need another buzzword for all of this, but it
no,
does kind of obfuscate the truth. Like, well, whatever these are, they're not just drones. They are, if they're truly, UFOs in the traditional sense, they are technologies we can't even begin to understand, but
yeah.
they're not drones. So I didn't like
Well,
that term.
Brent, we gotta give a shout out to you and all your fans, and make sure everybody tunes in with Brent Thomas on the Paranormal Portal podcast, and do you wanna give a shout out to your fans and where everybody can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. And a special hello to anybody that's been listening or is deciding to listen by virtue of listening to this show. I appreciate it. All the love and support is absolutely appreciated. And you can find out probably the best one-stop place for all the information about my shows and where to find me in social media. All that is on just go to paranormalportal.net. Just type paranormalportal.net in your browser window, and that'll show you all my socials. The YouTube page is linked there, as well as the podcasts. And I hope you check it out. I'd love to have you over there.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. You're listening in on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. We're going to leave you now with some bog team music, some boots on the ground. What do you want to listen to? Some rap, metal, 80s, rock? What kind of genre you like?
I like the 80s.
All right, let's put some of the 80s bog team music on.
Where the whispers start, ghostly figures in the midnight hour, specters grip with icy cold power. In the fog, Newfoundland nights, dark streets whispering under eerie lights, boots thumping, soft shadows creep real tight, team on the ground, ready for the fright. Boots on the ground, ghosts in the mist, paranormal pros, we don't ever miss. From the haunted cliffs to the old ship's twist, specters in our wake, we making lists. Echoes in the halls, cold breath of the past, spectral whispers, questions they ask, EVP static, truth coming fast, chasing shadows, we never come last. In the heritage town, tales time forgot, legends in the air, tangled in the plot, infrared spectrum, ghosts tied in knots, creeping through the night, evidence caught. Boots on the ground, ghosts in the mist, paranormal pros, we don't ever miss. From the haunted cliffs to the old ship's twist, specters in our wake, we making lists. Dark mansion corridors, atmospheric change, spectral entities, they acting strange. Through the veil we peer, close up range, unraveling history, page by page. Where the whispers start, ghostly figures in the midnight hour, specters grip with icy cold power. Bigfoot's roar echoes through the trees, footprints vanish with the autumn breeze. Scopes on the prowl, searching for his soul, that howling growl. Aliens in the sky we shout, where's the truth? Let's find it out. Science bound yet hearts of steel, the unknown close yet surreal. The void, eerie forces we cannot avoid. Cold spots whisper secrets untold, spirit tales that never grow old. Out in the realm where reason flees, we scour lands and sail the seas. Energies collide in the spectral storm, solving mysteries out on the north. we scour lands and sail the seas. Energies collide in a spectral storm, solving mysteries out of the norm.